Hello, my name is George Bias, and today I'm going to talk to you about proximity control and its usefulness when it comes to the classroom, how to implement it, how to best use it. So the big thing is obviously what is proximity control? Proximity control is a behavior management technique. It involves reducing the physical distance between the teacher and the student to kind of keep the student under control and on track. It's like a nonverbal method to remind students to follow the behavioral expectations. And it can be used with any age group in any type of classroom. Literally, all that it is moving the teacher close to the student. This normally makes the student kind of uncomfortable and realizes that, hey, they should probably be staying on track. So to properly use proximity control, there's a couple of steps you should really follow to make sure that you're using it right and that you're using it at the right times. So obviously the first step when implementing it is you want to kind of scan the classroom. You won't be doing this throughout the lesson, but scan the classroom to check for signs of disruptions or potential distractions. Proximity control can be used as something is happening or right before something could happen, in which the teacher, once they see it, should start slowly moving into the proximity of the student while continuing to teach the lesson. You don't want to change your pace or move too quickly or too obviously, because then the student might be almost feel like targeted, like pointed out, picked on. So you just kind of want to slowly move towards there while teaching the lesson. Then step 3, after a short period of time, normally a couple minutes, the student will kind of adjust the behavior due to the proximity, and then the teacher should then slowly begin to move away from the student, give them back to that sense of freedom, independence. And then step 4, once you've returned back to wherever you were staying before, in front of the room, the teacher should then start back with step 1 again and continue to scan the room. They might need to return back to that student they were just following, or they were in close proximity to. They might not. So always be scanning, and then once you see that sign, move towards them while not changing the lesson at all. And after a short period of time, once the student has adjusted their behavior due to proximity, slowly move away and monitor that student and the class in general to see any more potential changes. Now, there are some things to kind of keep in mind when it comes to proximity control. Proximity control is very flexible, can be used in individual work, small class or small group work, and whole class lessons. And there's no resources needed to implement proximity control. You don't need anything to. You just need to move towards the person. Now, big thing to note: proximity control should only be used for minor, non-dangerous behaviors. If someone's falling asleep or talking with their friend on their phone, proximity control is useful. But if there seems to be something more serious, it's a bigger interruption, there's potentially a risk to the health and safety of those around the student, then proximity control is way too weak and there should be something bigger implemented. Sometimes there is a problematic student, and if you have that problematic student who frequently needs you to be there using that proximity control, an option is to instead change seating so that's closer to the instructor. That way they don't have to move so far for their proximity control. There's that almost consistent proximity control going on. Note this is only for those who frequently need that extra reminder, that extra behavior management, and should not be used for many people. And when using proximity control, I kind of referenced this earlier, but make sure not to hover over the problematic student. It may embarrass them, it could kind of call them out, and they might act out even more because of it. So you want to stay, it's normally recommended about 3 feet from the student. That's like a good zone to manage. Now, I found another video that kind of goes over an example and a non-example of proximity control. This is in an elementary classroom, but as I've mentioned, it can be used at all levels, and it's identical in every single level and every single type of classroom. So here's a quick video showing some examples and non-examples.
Proximity control, elementary school example and non-example. Mrs. D expects her students to pay attention during classroom instruction. Jeremiah, however, is instead reading his journal. In this example, Mrs. D seamlessly implements proximity control to get him back on track. Take special note of how she addresses Jeremiah's behavior without interrupting the flow of her lesson.
So good to see everyone again. Today we're going to actually go into an area that talks about words. And one of these areas is titled adjective. Does anyone think that they know the definition of the word adjective? Oh, wonderful hands, wonderful hands. Yes, Miss Casey. A word that describes another word. I love it. That is awesome.
To review, the teacher implemented proximity control correctly. She scanned the classroom to determine the level of student engagement, identified and moved toward a disengaged student, stood in close proximity to the student for a few seconds while maintaining the pace and flow of her instruction, and walked away from the student while continuing to scan the classroom. When Mrs. D notices that Jeremiah is not engaged during classroom instruction, she attempts to implement proximity control. In this non-example, note how Mrs. D's instruction is interrupted when she engages with Jeremiah.
So today we're going to deal with an area of a part of speech called adjectives. Could anyone tell me what an adjective is? Could anyone tell me what an adjective is?
To review, the teacher did not correctly implement proximity control. Although she did move in close proximity to the student, she engaged with the student by closing his book, failed to maintain the pace and flow of her instruction, and lost her train of thought and struggled to resume the lesson.
Thank you for watching the video, and hopefully this taught you just a little bit more about proximity control. Also have a list of resources.
Proximity control.
List of resources if you want to dive deeper into it, as there is more to proximity control. This is just a good general overview. Once again, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoy.